The second person is someone that's often neglected. One of my biggest regrets is that I haven't put more time into this person. Because really you can lead a group without this person and things look fine. They move along good week after week. But when you try and multiply out another group, or if the leader gets sick or has to step down, then you really realize how badly you need this person, and that is the assistant. The assistant. At first it doesn't seem that vital because the leader's doing everything. But as we grow and the Lord is always bringing us to new people, we need to have assistants. Assistants are our future leaders. They're the apprentices, those that are learning. What does an assistant do? Well, a picture in the Bible that can help is a picture of an armor bearer. Armor bearer in the Bible days a lot of times was someone that would carry the heavy armor. The shield, the spears, the swords, the arrows, while the soldier, often the person of rank, the officer, was moving along. They had their armor bearer right there with them, their assistant who learned how to fight. And think of some of the partnerships in the Bible that we read about. Moses and Aaron did great things. They had their bad times, but they did great things. They worked together, two leaders. David and Jonathan, the friendship they had. Jonathan was actually an armor bearer for David for a time. They had a great friendship, and it was used powerfully. And it was after Jonathan died that we see David really struggle. It's then that he falls into adultery even, maybe because he missed that good friendship in his life, the person that could speak to him, even in the hard areas. When Jonathan wasn't there, David has a lot of trouble. Thinking of Elijah and Elisha, two prophets that do great things. Elijah was a great prophet, and one of his greatest works was that he raised up Elisha to follow after him. Ruth and Naomi, you know the story from the book of Ruth and how they did great things for the Lord. Mary and Martha were a great combination, two women that worked together and ministered in the New Testament. And of course, Paul and Barnabas, later on Paul and Silas, and Paul and Timothy. You get the picture. Throughout the Bible, we see people ministering together. Jesus had his 12 disciples. He didn't minister alone. He was raising people up because one day he wouldn't be there. So I want to ask you, if you're a leader, who's your assistant? Who are you working on? It doesn't have to be just one person, but try and do things with someone. Hopefully it's one, maybe two or three. So when you're dealing with a situation, take someone with you. When I first was involved in a small group before I was leading, I'm glad the leader took me with him. And I wound up in some situations I didn't want to be in. I was a young single guy going to talk to people about their marriage, hearing stuff that I didn't really want to hear. But I needed to, because one day I would be leading a group and talking to people about their marriage, and I needed to see how someone else, they had a lot more experience, would talk about marriage and talk to people about their lives. I remember going to visit some people that had visited the church and going and just being an assistant, just kind of sitting back and watching someone else start a conversation, talk to people about how they like the church, what's their spiritual background, do they know Jesus, are they sure they're going to heaven. I needed to watch that and then start to do a little bit before I could actually have confidence to lead that conversation and then train someone else. That's the way it works, right? We can only learn so much from a book. A lot of it we got to learn by assisting someone else. I like this little outline. Think about this. First of all, I do, you watch, we talk. So the mentor does something, and the assistant watches, and they talk about it after. That makes sense. What do you think? This and that. Then I do, you help, we talk. Okay, so the leader does something, the assistant helps. Maybe it's in group, they help lead some of the worship. They lead one song, pray before it, say something about it. Maybe they help open up the group in prayer, gather people together. Maybe they do the icebreaker beginning of the lesson and kind of bring in the topic. Maybe they lead some people in prayer at the end. The assistant helps. So I do, you help, then we talk about it. You do, I help, we talk. So this could be in a small group when you say to your assistant, hey, this night you lead the worship time, or you lead the teaching time, or you lead the works time. You keep track of who's mentoring who, and or you call the people this week. Call, email, contact them, however. Make sure you try and get a hold of everyone to get them back here. Now, I'll help you a little bit. Then we talk about it. Then you do, I watch, we talk. So the leader is taking more of a back seat and letting the other person lead. Finally, you do, and someone else watches. That's when we multiply, and someone else is with that person that was our assistant, and we're in another place. At one point, we were one church, one location, one service, like most churches in America. It was a radical thing as a church when we actually went to two services. I remember it. It was like, wow, this is really a big change. We got to have the worship team play twice, and we're going to have to get some other people doing the children's ministry, and it seemed really confusing. Then things grew, and eventually went to 2 locations, eventually 3, 4. Now we have 15 locations, right? Now it seems common sense. Of course, we wouldn't want to all meet in one place. We're too spread out, and we got a lot of people that can teach and preach and lead worship and do this and that. But it was difficult in the beginning. It always seems unnatural to multiply, to expand out, because we're used to things going a certain way. But this is the way we grow and reach people. This is God's calling on our church. So follow that outline as you think of an assistant. I hope if you're a leader, you're thinking of who can assist you. If you're an assistant, I want you to be thinking about how you can work with your leader through kind of that process and what you want to do in the group. Of the 5 W's, the leader should really do 2 to 4 of them, and the assistant should do 1 to 2. In other words, the leader's going to do most of it probably, hopefully not hosting, and we'll get to that. It's good to get someone else to do that. But the assistant should do a couple things. Maybe you start out and it's just the works time, or they're leading the worship time. Whatever it is, do 1, then 2. Let the assistant do more and more. But they should have some responsibility. You don't want the assistant to be a name only, where you say, this is the assistant. Yeah, he's a great guy. Pat him on the back. You never give him anything to do. No, let that person grow. Let them lead part of it. Maybe at times in the word time you break into 2 groups and the assistant leads a discussion time with half of the people. So the assistant, the armor bearer, very important person, easy person to neglect because you can start a group without them, but it will short circuit your growth and your health if you don't have that person. So the leader, the assistant, the third person is the host or the hostess. The host or hostess. If you're going to have a picture of that, I think a picture could be the thermostat. You know, the thermostat adjusts whether or not a room is comfortable. Depending on who you are, you either like that maybe about 80 degrees if you're me. I like it warm. If you're my wife, you like it about 68. So pray for us. We have temperature issues, okay? But the thermostat adjusts the room and you try and make it comfortable. Well, the host or hostess is the person that tries to make the setting comfortable. So when people come in right away, some of the distractions are removed. It's a place they want to be. They're more open to receiving. They're not distracted by things they don't like or things that are irritating. And it's a place they want to come back to and bring people to. Huge ministry. Let me give you a few verses in the Bible that talk about it so you know that this is a spiritual thing. 1 Peter 4:9 says, offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Romans 16:5 talks about Aquila and Priscilla, and it says, greet also the church that meets at their house. You realize that in the early days, the church didn't have buildings that they owned separately. It was people's homes. That's where they met. The Last Supper, Mark 14:13 through 15, tells about how Jesus sent his disciples out, and I love this phrase. He says, send them out and tell them this. The teacher asks, where is my guest room, where I may eat the Passover with my disciples? This Last Supper, the holy, sacred moment. We have John 13 through 16, 4 whole chapters of teaching. From that Last Supper, this incredibly precious time, right before Jesus went to the cross. It happened not in a church building, not in some big hall. It happened in somebody's home. Somebody had to open up their home and let these guys come in and eat and drink and spend time there. What a great ministry. Finally, Pentecost, after Jesus went back into heaven, and you remember the disciples were praying day after day. It was in someone's home. Acts 2:1 and 2 talks about that, and it talks about the day when a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting. They were in a house, not in a church. So the Lord uses homes. He uses hospitality. Can you imagine if the owner of that house said, hey, I'm tired of people praying here. I want you guys to get out of here. You've been here too long. I don't like you being here. I could get in trouble for this. No, there was somebody that had a gift of hospitality that said, keep coming back, and made it a welcoming atmosphere so that they were there. Huge ministry. I want you to think about this too. Even if you meet in a neutral place, in other words, not a home, if you meet in a church building or if you meet in a restaurant or something like that, there's still a need for hospitality. At Midway, a lot of our groups meet in the church building, but every group should still have a host or hostess. It's very important. Now, what does a host or hostess actually do? Well, 3 things that are really common sense, but think about it. And if you're a host or hostess, you probably like these things, you're good at them, but you got to make sure you're doing them. One is arrive early. It doesn't do enough good if you're very hospitable, but you're not there when people get there. So make sure you're there early. The group really starts when the second person gets there. You might say your group starts at 7, but if people start showing up at 6:45, hey, the group really started. I mean, people already are being ministered to, or maybe they're sitting around feeling lonely or discouraged. So the group already started when the second person got there. So the host or hostess really should be the first person, or have someone help them that's the first person there. So arrive early. Make sure you're there to greet people. Second thing is prepare the room. Prepare the room. Make sure you do that before people get there. You don't want to be running around like Martha in the Bible we read about, when she was running around making all the preparations and really not spending time with the people, even Jesus himself. And you know the story of Mary and Martha in Luke 11. So try and have the room prepared ahead of time. If it's a home, then hopefully it's already set up. It doesn't have to be perfect, but let's make sure it's already set up so when people come in we can focus on them and we're already there early, not feeling like we got to rush around. Prepare the room so it's attractive, inviting. We have at Midway, for instance, a lot of groups meet in the church building. That's okay, but they still need a host or hostess. Sometimes in the church building the rooms are left a little cluttered, or the chairs are all put in a corner. It was cleaned and everything's pushed to the side. Someone needs to get there early, make sure it's set up. Even if it's in a church building, someone should take authority, that the shepherd, the small group leader, gives someone that authority to say, you're the host or hostess of this group. So you need to get here early, make sure the room is prepared. So when people come in, it's inviting. Nothing like a little music in the background. Hey, just a CD player with some Christian music. That helps the atmosphere. How about some food or drink? Doesn't have to be a whole meal, of course, but just a little something. A little juice, coffee, water, little snacks. And the host or hostess can help arrange that or get other people to bring it. Makes the group way more inviting. Something about walking into a house, just having a cup to hold in your hand makes you feel more at home than if you just walk in and there's nothing there for you. Some groups, even in the church building here, have tablecloths and sometimes candles or something to set the atmosphere, some different lighting. So that's something the host or hostess does. Finally, greet people. So arrive early, prepare the room, greet people. When people get there, don't ignore them. Go around and talk to everyone. You know who's great at this? A lot of times is if you go to a restaurant, the host or hostess, right at the front door. You know, in a lot of restaurants, they're real friendly. Right away, they make you feel like the most important person. And they're talking to you in a halfway decent restaurant. You walk in there, they say hi to you. They're glad you're there. They acknowledge you. Everyone that comes into the group should be acknowledged. Glad you're here. How you doing? Good to see you. How you been? And we try and get people to mix and talk together. So that's the role of a host or hostess. Very important. Having a leader, having an assistant, having a host or hostess. Obviously, from the 5 W's, the welcome falls under the category of the host or hostess. I want to encourage you as leaders not to be the host or hostess if possible, because you can get someone else involved. That way, you're leading the group, get someone else to host it. Gives them something to do. Gets them more involved. If you are having it at your home and you're the leader, try and get someone else to help at least with hosting so they can get there early, greet people, and help set up things. A lot of people have this gift and they're strong in this ability. Let's get them involved. So those are the 3 key people that make a group successful: the leader, the assistant, and the host or hostess, as they take care of those 5 W's that will make a group successful. I'm excited about this fall. Looking forward to hearing great stories about everything that's going to happen. It's going to be a lot of work. But God is with us. He blesses us. There's nothing I'd rather be doing. So God bless you as you do this very important ministry. Amen.